Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Journey to Purpose. Today, I have the wonderful Mike Milligan. He is a certified financial planner and founder of the One Oak Financial. Mike, welcome. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is going to be just an absolutely amazing podcast, I believe. And so I'm looking forward
Let,
to it.
absolutely. Thank you. And first, easy question. Where in the world are you today?
So today I'm in Norfolk, Virginia. But this is not my home. My home is San Juan, Puerto Rico. I do travel a fair bit across the United States and around the world, and I have multiple offices around. So I just happen to be in Norfolk today.
And why not? And Virginia's a lovely state that I spent time in as well. And I've never got to Puerto Rico yet, but with the weather you guys have, I can see why you want to live there.
Later today, I'll be in Puerto Rico, and I'm going to leave. I'm going from like 0 degrees Celsius, 32 Fahrenheit, down to like 85 or 22 or 24 or something like that, or 30, whatever it is in Celsius. So I'm looking forward to being in the heat again later today.
I'm so jealous and excited for you. Well, let's get this going so you can get there on time. So you talk about your journey beginning as your grandmother's CFO. Uh, let's start with like who is Mike and why was that significant for you?
So I was born into utter poverty in a small town in North Carolina. And when I say poverty, right, there's, the United States has a welfare system like many places around the world. And I remember getting like food delivered to our house, from churches and the social programs of the day. I didn't know that I grew up in poverty until later in life. But the reason we were there is because it was just tough economic times. And my grandfather was in the construction business. Construction business was not very good coming out of the 70s and 80s in the United States. And my grandmother was a stay-at-home wife and grandmother and mother. My mother was in high school when she had me, so we grew up in what I didn't know at the time was poverty, but what I've come to realize is that we did not have a lot growing up. When I was 11, my grandmother had to start her own business, not because she wanted to. She had to innovate out of desperation because my grandfather got cancer. And
Goodness.
he could no longer go out and do the manual work required. He took some odds and ends jobs for a couple of years just to make ends meet. He like did some delivery routes, but like I remember like she had to do something, and so she did the thing she knew how to do best. She cooked, and then she would
Mm.
wrap that food up, and she would take it to places and sell it as lunches for construction workers and different professions out there. She would take them to other stores where they would sell them on her behalf on consignment. Eventually, she would take this business and take it to fairs and festivals and set up booth there. I had the privilege, though, and this is where I got my entrepreneur spirit and my love of money and helping people plan, is she would let me count the money at the end of the day. And I'd also help her sell her collared sandwiches. So, do you even know what a collard is?
I do not. I'm going to ask, what is it?
So, in the best way, it's a green leafy vegetable. The best description of it would be something like kale. Like it's
Okay.
bitter, but it's very unique in like southern United States because when you start growing them, they're plentiful. But she turned kale and cornbread into a sandwich, right? Very easy to produce product, but she was selling them for $5 at a time when McDonald's was selling a Big Mac for $1, and you could get like a hot dog, three for $1. But what I
Right.
learned from her is she built this business based off love, right? For like people loved who she was. They loved my grandfather and what he was. But she survived by selling college sandwiches. I learned how to sell, how to count money, how to, make sure every penny, nickel, dime was accounted for. And we would put that money in a Folgers coffee can, and we would put that up in a cabinet, right, to store it for when she needed it. We were not big believers in banks because of the Great Depression, right? The
Hmm.
stories of that. We were simple folks. We didn't know what to do, but I got my love of money and entrepreneurship, and eventually I was the first person in my family to go off to college, and
Amazing.
I went into the banking world. I learned more about money over my first 10 or 12 years. Then eventually I founded my first company, and now here I am with One Oak Financial as a major company around the United States.
It's such a remarkable story because, a lot of people understand this now, that what we experience as a child can really imprint on you for life. And again, growing up in poverty can imprint you in a certain way, a certain attitude towards money, which can sometimes be negative or not as receiving as you would like it to be. But I love, first of all, your grandma sounds like she's amazing lady, and think people that generation generally were anyway. But the fact is that the imprint that you took away was the the entrepreneur spirit, not necessarily the I haven't got things spirit. It was like, how do I make do what I've got? I had to Google collared sandwiches to try and find one while we were talking, by the way. And again, just the fact that that's a thing is news to me. But also, again, it's a really simple thing, having looked at the ingredients and taking the simple thing, packaging it up, adding value. That is a very entrepreneurial way of looking at it that not everyone would have.
It is. And and even your comment of what is imprinted us on childhood. I mean, I've been, for my academic work and being a practicing certified financial planner in the United States, I've been working with people in money for over 30 years. When you include my time with my grandmother, I've been working with people for almost 40 years now. That imprint, that earliest memory of money, people don't really explore that in detail enough. It can, if you would go to think, like if people right now who are listening to the podcast would just think, what's the first time you ever remember money being in your past? Just go back as far as you can. And, and when you think about that, it's usually around you see somebody spend money. You see like that transfer of value, like somebody took, a couple dollars and they bought something at a store. Or if it's not spending, the other memory that people have of money is the lack of it. Right. And it's like we didn't have money. So we didn't have great Christmases, or we didn't go on vacations. And they put these up, and this connotation of money creates like either a positive or a negative feeling in them,
Mm.
which ultimately as adults produces fear, stress, and anxiety when it comes to it. And then what leverages even further than that is this: I don't understand it. I cannot comprehend it. And I'm not even willing to be educated on it. So then you abdicate
Mm.
the responsibility to like an advisor, or you abdicate or you just don't get educated. And what happens is there consistently becomes either a lack of money. So, the have nots, or there's an abundance of money, the haves. And that's and over time, and I mean, we can historically prove this out over all of existence. This has been that case ever since going back to the caveman, the haves and the have-nots. But it all relates back to your your first memory of what money was.
Fascinating, isn't it? I was trying to think of what my first memory of money actually was, but I remember I understood from very early age that we were also not very well off. I was the youngest of three, and the only time we got new clothes was either for school, because in the UK we all wear school uniform. Though actually, often I had hand-me-down uniform, or it was at January, and when we used to have January sales, which was used to be a big thing as opposed to how it is now. It's always a sale on somewhere, but you'd save up all year to go to get everything you needed in January, and even then that was really tightly controlled. So you'd get the new shoes and the new top and everything else. Um, and so it's really funny how, like I said, that is a memory that stands out for me very, very much. And I hadn't really thought about it till now.
Well, so once you have embraced that memory, now think about this one. When is the first time you ever earned your own money?
Oh my God. I remember I was 12, so I got a job at the local corner shops in the post office. And it was £2 an hour, which was an absolute steal when you're 12. And I remember, yeah, I made like £4 a night because I did a couple hours work, and that was £16 a week. I was a pop star with that kind of money, and I was only 12. So
Now,
there we go.
now, now with that first money, what was the first thing you bought with your money?
So I bought my family tickets to go to the theatre to go and see a musical.
And though, see, the answer to those three questions, I learned more about you and your money patterns than most people ever care to realize. I'm guessing you're a very generous, giving person, and you've probably been that
I
way
try,
your whole life,
I
right?
try to be, yeah. I love
It's like,
giving, absolutely.
and so when people embrace like their first memory of money, where they made their first money, and then what they did with the first money, those create patterns that
Mm.
generally continue on for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And the thing about like, if you ever want to like become wealthy, or if you ever want to retire early, or if you want to, if you've gotten yourself in a problem where you need to pay off debt, or, you want to protect a family, a spouse, patterns have to be interrupted at some point in order to change behavior. And like, if you could answer those three things, that by the way, the real answer, the real question that I ask most of the time is, why is money important to you? Like, if you can answer the question, why is money important to you, you can then interrupt patterns. And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, the One Oak Financial, most people just assume that oak is about a tree. It's not. One oak stands for one of a kind. It's a belief that I have that when you look at your history, when you understand what money is, when you interrupt patterns and you realize that you are unique, you are one of a kind. Why would you not want a one of a kind financial plan for your one of a kind life? And when people really sit back and think, most of this world is adapt to create one size fits all. Like, you're supposed to fit in the world. Like, governments, corporations, they all try to fit you into what they want to do. But the reality is you're unique. And I don't care where you live. If you live in Nepal or China or Australia, England, the UK, France, the United States, Mexico, you're one of a kind, right? You are truly unique, and when you're looking at what the life you want to live, what's true about everybody listening to this podcast, what's true about us is we are going to die. That's the common thing that we have. That's the one size fits all belief that we all should share. Now, what we do between here and that day is what is unique about us. Don't try to fit into what the world wants you to be. Learn from your past, educate yourself on what allows you to continue to live a unique life, and then go live your life. Because if you don't live your life, then you're not giving the world what the world wants, and that is a unique you.
Man, that's wonderful. I love that. It's really interesting when you say what the world wants for you versus governments and corporations. I learned quite a long time ago that I am not built out for corporations. Despite now I was in the military, you'd think I'd be really good at structure and discipline. I was a great soldier. I was also a terrible soldier. Let's not go there. But when I joined the corporate world, I actually first of all worked for Lockheed Martin, and I have to say I love Lockheed. That's why I was in Virginia. Way back when. But after I left Lockheed, I found that it happened to be a very unique setup they had there. And I never found that again, because it was a really good, strong group of people, really smart people, really flexible. And I went to work for one of the big four companies, Deloitte in the UK. And I thought, hey, I've arrived. Like, this is it. And I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And ever since, I've remained independent pretty much. And the one or two times I've flirted with going back into a corporation of some variety, I've hated it. I've gone, why did I think about that? But I think, for me, the one thing that I had when I was growing up, which not everyone gets, is my parents would support me no matter what. I honestly think if I murdered a person, they'd be like, hey, we'll help you bury the body. I mean, you did a bad thing, but we'll help you deal with it. And that gives you a confidence to fail, which not everyone has. And I think one of the things that keeps people stuck in these bad money traps is the fear of failure. What if it doesn't work? Do you see that pattern as well?
All the time. People they perceive failure and risk to be the same thing. And they're really, really two totally different things. Like, what failure really means, it just means lack of success. That's all it means. Risk is something that we do that brings reward. And so what we've got to realize is, what reward do we want? Whatever level of reward we want is the level of risk we got to take also. It's almost like a metronome. You know what a metronome is? Like a pendulum that goes back and forth.
Yep.
It helps keep time, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, and musicians use this all the time. And so, however far that goes to the right, it's going to go equally far to the left. But what's true about success and failure is they're not equal. Like, you can be uber successful and have very little failure in your life. But what's true about risk and reward, the greater the reward, or the greater the risk, the greater the reward, because that's an equal swinging pendulum. People just don't understand that failure and risk are two totally different things. And when you define out, like, because there's a lot of people, like, for instance, when you worked at Lockheed, the chances of you being laid off from that job were insignificant. I mean, they were very minuscule, right? Because big job. Now, with that risk of being laid off, not present, you still save like an emergency fund. You still
Yeah, for
prepared
sure.
as if,
Yeah.
you still prepare as if that's going to come one day. But that happens to such a small fragment of the population of the people that actually work at Lockheed. People self-select, right, leaving Lockheed. You either resign or you don't do your job, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but people will who work there will think working at a corporation like that is risk. It's not risk. Like, you control the future. You're going to succeed more by showing up on time, doing the work, and going
hmm
there. Risk comes when you leave a job like that and you build a business for yourself, right? Because
hmm
then there's nothing backing you. There's not a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's sending you a check every couple of weeks backing you up. Whatever you produce is yours. Whatever
Yeah.
expenses you have to bear. And I mean, the people have this big sense of like failure, like they think they're going to fail. And so, and that's why they'll just neglect like getting educated when it comes to money. Like, and listen, guys, if you're ever going to save money, if you're ever going to try to accomplish anything great, there's going to be a little bit of failure along the way. Nothing great is ever accomplished without taking a step back. Just as long as it's not catastrophic, you can continue to live the life that you're meant to live.
I love that. I think people underestimate, what's the expression that you overestimate how much you can do in 1 year, but underestimate how much you can do in like 5 years or something like that.
Right.
And I think
No, I mean,
that's really true.
it's 100% true because people are generally optimistic, right? They will like you said, overestimate what you can do. I was just watching like on LinkedIn yesterday. There's this in the United States. There's Alex and Layla Hormozy, right? They
Oh, I know of them.
created.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're in the independent space or in the coaching program or something, like, who these folks are, right? They went from
hmm
0 to $100 million in like a less than a decade. But she was literally putting something over there talking about how she like manages her schedule as the CEO of a 9-figure company. And one of the things that she said is like, whatever you fill your calendar with on time, that's exactly how long the project is going to take to do. So whatever time she thinks, she cuts it in half. Right. There's a principle of that. I forget what she named the principle, what the principle is, but like, if you give yourself 4 weeks to do a project, it's going to take you 4 weeks. Right.
Yeah.
If you give yourself 2 weeks to do a project, guess what? It's going to take you 2 weeks. Now you freed up 2 more weeks on your calendar to go do something else. And that's how you scale. That's how you get bigger. And it's just like, it's amazing. Like, some of the thought leaders, like where thought comes from now. We used to quote people like Albert Einstein, right? And, these major thought leaders, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Winston Churchill, right? Now we're quoting, influencers off of
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
who built businesses, and they didn't even have nickels to rub together 8 or 9 years ago.
No, but you're right. The transformation is amazing, and I'm also going to use that excuse next time I'm asked why I write all my university essays overnight. I'm like, because that's how long it takes. That's all I need is know every single essay. I'm like, every time I'm like, I'm going to do another one and start it, 6 weeks time, and no, every time overnight. That's my
Yeah, I
excuse.
mean,
That's all I need.
listen, I'm the same way. When I give myself a lot of time to do projects, I will redo the project multiple times. Like when I'm recording a video,
Right.
like for either like when I educate people, because I teach like personal financial planning, but I do it like asynchronously where I like do the course, they watch it, they feedback. Like, I used to like record the course. I'm like, I didn't like that. I'm gonna record it again. And then I'm gonna record it. And I don't do that anymore. It's one take, you get the natural me, whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah.
And then you watch it, and then I'll redo it about a year later. But we have to, and it comes into failure, right? Because the biggest critic anybody has is themselves, right? That's the biggest critic. I mean,
Absolutely.
nobody's going to be harder on you than you are. Nobody's good because nobody sees what's in your head. The goal is to put it out there, and when you put it out there, people are going to see only what you communicate. They're not going to see what you envisioned. So, it's just amazing how we got from failure right now, how we got from failure to what's in my head. But ideally, right, in all of this, we have to take risk, right, in life to get to where we want to get, either financially or where we want to get to live kind of that one of a kind life.
Love that. And that brings us nicely into the point, really, that you talk about in some of your training around, planning for an amazing retirement. And it's not sexy topic. People don't do this, right? But I think it's something really important as to how you want your life to look. It goes back to, who do you want to be? What do you want the one of us? What does the universe want for you? What do you want for yourself? And the reality is, retirement planning is one of those things, right?
It is, because, you know, I did write a book called The One of a Kind Financial Plan. I don't know if you sense a theme here. One Oak Financial, The One of a Kind Financial Plan. It's like who I am. Like if I'm going to leave this world and people are going to remember me for anything, they're going to remember, you're one of a kind. You deserve a one of a kind financial plan. One Oak Financial helped build it. You know, One Oak Collective. Everything is one oak to me, right? Because we are unique. But the interesting part about trying to get to a retirement that's uniquely yours is, and it comes to like these like phases of life, right? We have that little education phase that we do, like from somewhere between birth to 22, or right. Then we get into this working phase, right, between like 22 to 60ish or 65. And then we get in this next phase of retirement. And along with those, there's those micro phases, right? Maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, maybe you have grandkids, whatever, right? There's these micro phases in life. But it's all this whole thing about like, if you're going to get to this last phase, retirement, you're not dead, right? You're
Definitely
not.
not.
And you have this now in that last phase, you have this ability, hopefully have some resources to your name where you can do everything that you have seen either other people do in your life or you heard would be really cool to do. You know, like for instance, like I'm living a one of a kind life now, right? I live on a Caribbean island in San Juan, Puerto Rico, just because if I'm gonna talk about one of a kind living, I'm gonna do it. Right. But we also, like Liana and I also, this year, we started the year in Lima, Peru. We went to Mendoza, Argentina. We've been in Mexico.
Mm.
We've been to 10 or 12 Caribbean islands. We spent almost a month going around, you know, the British Isles, right? We went to the Highlands of Scotland. We saw not Superman, Spider-Man being
Spider-Man
filmed. Yeah, yeah. We saw
in
we saw
Glasgow.
it being filmed, right? We saw Tom Holland right outside of our room one night when they were filming Spider-Man 4. It was like insane. Like we didn't plan it. It just happened. You know, we saw where the Beatles grew to, you know, notoriety. You know, we got to see Mamma Mia in the West End, right? We've been
Mm.
to Switzerland and Vienna, Austria. We went to Budapest. I mean, we did so much, and we do this every year because we believe that you have to live a one of a kind life. The problem is if most retirees, like what I'm living right now, most people wait until retirement to do that.
Hmm.
The best version of you is the version that is listening to this right now. Because you can't go back and be who you were in the past. You can't go back to when your youth and be that, you know, spunky and energetic. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you're not going to have as much energy as you have now. And so, like, I'm going to embrace living one of a kind now, but most people wait until retirement to do it. But when they get to retirement, if you don't have a financial plan in place, if you don't know like how you're going to allocate your money, how you're going to spend your money, what you're going to do down the road, then it's going to be kind of this piecemeal effect, or this whole thing of, I'm going to just kind of try it and see if it works. And you just don't ever know if it's going to work. And the last thing you want to do in retirement is go back to work again. You don't retire to one day go back to work. You retire to be taken care of, right? You know, let your past self take care of your future self in retirement.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things we advocate for, like even in the book, the One of a Kind Financial Plan, like doing it for yourself or working with people who can actually help you build, you know, a financial future that takes care of you.
Love that. I understand your brother passed, unfortunately, but that kind of has spurred some of this championing of this approach, hasn't it?
It did, right. You know, I've always, before Jonathan passed away in 22, July of 2022, I'll never forget where I was. My wife and I, Liana, were taking an early Friday afternoon, and we were just sitting on a beach. We were just trying to get some sun. We had taken some food there, and we're going to eat. And we're just going to relax. And I got a phone call, and it was from my stepfather, who said, and he just said, "Is your wife there? Is Liana there?" And I said, "Yeah, she is." And he just said, "Put me on speaker," and put me on speaker. And this was weird for him to be calling this time of day, by the way. And he said, "Your brother passed away. He was involved in a car wreck head on." He's like, "We just
Goodness.
found out an hour ago." He was 41 years old. See, my brother was remember I said I was the first person who went to college. We grew up in poverty in a little small town, right? My brother loved life. he did not love education. he was he was
Yeah.
not a person he was not a person who was going to excel in fine literature, or he was not going to, spend 3 hours doing homework or trying to understand calculus. That was not his thing. He was more of a people person in his adult life. He was a fireman, a volunteer fireman. He,
Wow.
um, he worked in some construction jobs. He, at the end, was like he helped people by delivering gas to their home, like propane gas, like for heating. But the interesting part about where he lived is he told me at one point it takes like 27 minutes to fill up a gas tank, like from the time he got onto a property until then. And he said, most of that time, I'm just watching a meter. Like I hit the gas and I'm just watching it to see how much is there. He's like, but I'm doing it in an area where I want to like talk to people, but I don't look like the people. And
Hmm.
so my brother is as white of a man as I am. He grew dreadlocks. Like
Oh, wow. Okay.
he grew a full head of dreadlocks that Bob Marley would have been proud of. Like just unique. And what that did for him is it opened doors, like literally opened doors for people to walk out of their house and talk to him. Like, cause he was
Mm.
so interesting. It was just like the dreadlocks were a natural thing. And so he had those for like the last 2.5 years of his life. And the conversations were evident at his funeral, right? I mean, it was like, you could tell like mission accomplished from him. I mean, what made him so unique was not the dreadlocks, was that he just cared for people so much. He wanted to connect with them. So at the church service at the end, where the funeral was there, the town it's pretty much still divided. White people stay on this side, African Americans stay on this side, not really fully integrated. But you look at the church service right at the end where they were talking about my brother, and this was like it looked like salt and pepper in there had just been mixed together. And these are people that loved him, right? And the church held about 500 people, and there were like 900 people crammed into a
Oh,
building
wow.
together, probably violating some fire marshal code, but nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cared because they were there. And at the end, I remember I could imagine being there right now, and up on the screen there was this picture of him, like this washed out black and white picture of him up there with like his dreadlocks with a bandana on in full glory. And the theme was ask me about him, right? And the hymn had nothing to do with my brother, right? The hymn, my brother was a very religious person, and he wanted to be able to tell people about his faith, right? And he didn't, and his faith is not the same faith that everybody lives by in the world, right? It's not, we embrace that, right? We know that like he felt a calling on his life that I don't necessarily feel on mine. Listeners may not feel on theirs. But what he did is he adapted who he was for the purpose that he felt like he was called to do. And he put this, and his dreads were not a wig. They were real, right? He washed them, he braided them, he did all this, but he did it just to connect with people. And I remember standing over the coffin before the service, and I just remember saying, dude, you really were one of a kind. And I'm in tears, right? I was the only person in the church at the time, because I wanted to say goodbye to him. But what I realize is that I'm never going to say goodbye to him. Like I'm going to
Mm.
live like he's here. I'm not going to live like he's gone. My sister-in-law Melissa, still calls him her husband in present tense. She still like leaves like a seat at the dinner table for him, right? It's this beautiful thing. He was one of a kind. He is one of a kind. I guess that's the better way of saying it. He is one of a kind. Losing him was like a sucker punch to me, right? Because like I was his big brother. I wanted to protect him. I wanted to do things with him. We had plans to be at the beach with him in a couple weeks after that. And like, I miss it. I miss him.
Mm.
But what I'm never going to do is I'm never going to while I'm alive, I'm never going to not talk about him like he's not here,
Mm.
because he is one of a kind. I see it in his son, Gabe, and his daughter, Bella. I see it in like his relationship with Melissa that's still around. But what he taught me in death is that we're not promised tomorrow. And if you want to
Mm.
do something in this life, you better do it now, right? Because there's a car wreck happening right this minute where somebody is going to pass away. Somebody's at a doctor's appointment right now getting a terminal cancer diagnosed. diagnosis, right? There's somebody that, tragically just went to the beach and all of a sudden the gunman just starts shooting. Right. There's college students where there is, a gunman who knocks down several people. Unfortunately, we hear about this stuff all today. The only thing we're guaranteed is this breath, this moment, right? And if you want to live it, you better go live it. Right. Don't
Mm.
put off to tomorrow what may never happen. Do what you can today to give this world everything you have, because this world needs it. This world needs you. It needs you to plant a tree. It needs you to invest in the next generation and, read a book to them. It needs you to tell somebody you got this. And if you do that, like I think my brother he's taught me more about living one of a kind than anybody else. If you can do that for somebody, you just don't know what that person's going to do in the future. You don't know what that tree's going to provide to somebody in the future. You don't know but picking up that trash, how it's going to help the environment. Right. So that's what his death taught me. And it's still teaching me stuff every day.
It's a lesson we all need to learn. And I'm very lucky to have survived a number of incidents where I should have died. I got hit by a car when I was 21, living in Russia. I was doing my first degree, and they thought I was dead, and I clearly am not. And then I had a serious incident since then. So I've always had this attitude of like, you need to do stuff now. Absolutely. So every year I plan 12 events, at least 12 events. So every month I have something to look forward to. And it's everything from visiting a castle to, we did axe throwing one time, going abroad. I travel a lot as well. And for me, it's so woven into my life now that people go to me, how do you do it? I'm like, I just don't know how to not do it. I don't know what else I'd be doing with my time otherwise. But as I said, I've lost people in the military. I've, lost family. And there is that reality check of we only have today. And quite frankly, I think I am running out of my 9 lives. I think I'm lucky to have had 9 lives in the first place. But it goes back to your conversation of risk versus failure, though. It's, for some people, it feels like a risk, right? And for me, the greater risk is not doing these things and not living my life the way I want to live it. But for somebody else, the greater risk might feel like, but what if I do this and then I can't afford something else? And how do you sort of square that circle?
I tell people all the time, there's a great financial podcast in the United States where this lady, Paula Pound, always says, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. It's a constant theme of her podcast. And it's just an absolutely amazing thing, right? So like this whole idea though of what if I do this, I'm not even going to have money to do that, right? It's true. It's 100% true. The thing is that you will make time or your budget will make space for the things that are most important to you. So like, for instance, you asked me earlier if I had a drink here when we were back in the green room, right? Getting ready for this. And I put up this Diet Coke bottle, right? And so I have this Diet Coke here. Well, this Diet Coke was not free. We're not sponsored by Diet Coke, right? They didn't send this to me. I stopped at a store. I picked it up. It cost me a couple dollars. Well, this couple dollars, if you do this 500 times a year, a couple times a day, that's $1,000, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this is like once the liquid is out of this, I can't take the bottle back and ask them to refill it for free, right? They won't give me any value for the bottle when it's done. And so there's this transfer, right? Of like, I gave them $2, they gave me the Diet Coke. And if I do it enough times, right, that means I'm transferred something else that I wanted to do for the pleasure of having this Diet Coke. So like this Diet Coke may represent $1,000 by the end of the year. But the reality is like this $2 of Diet Coke, if I did it, like I spent $1,000 on this year, 20 years from now, this didn't cost me $2. It cost me 20 years from now, it may have costed me $25,000. Right? Because like the time value of money. And so what you have to do is you have to reconcile, right? And reconcile is another way of just saying budget. You have to budget for what's important. Many people, there's many people who eat at home so that they can go do 12 events, 12 calendar trips a year, right? There's other people who eat out every night and then they have nothing left to go do travel. And so life's all about choices, right? That you make, and finances are no different, right? I have a daughter that lives in Alabama, and she works at a nonprofit she doesn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, working at nonprofits is not a a wealthy thing. And she's been doing it for about a year and a half. And recently we were having a conversation and she said to me, Dad, I need to start investing money. And I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world can you invest money? You only make this much money. And she said, well, and she told me the amount of money she had in her savings account. And it didn't reconcile. Like the amount of money she makes, she had about 90% of the amount of money that she makes in income in her savings account. But what I realized is that she doesn't spend anything.
Hmm.
She spends nothing, right? And when I thought about it again, like I pay her cell phone bill, I pay her car insurance, her car is paid for, her rent is covered because of her job. So that's why she's able to save that money. And so here she is as somebody living just above kind of the poverty line with a lot of money saved. And then there's, I've seen doctors who make $300,000 or $400,000 who don't even save the same amount she does. It's all about choices. And when you realize it's about choices, you just have to choose yourself first, right? Pay yourself first, budget your money for the things it costs to live, and then give enough money left to go do the things you want to do. That's like from a certified financial planner, it's about the simplest way I can explain budgeting. It goes deeper, like in my book, about how to do that, and even in the courses I teach.
Absolutely. And I think this comes back to the overall sort of ethos of your approach to financial planning, which is the one of a kind. So many of the, I guess, templates out there for budgeting for pensions, they're very cookie cutter. They're very one and the same. So what you're saying really is you need to look at who you are and who you want to be. But how do people do that in reality?
Well, if you have never gone through and, well, just like we did earlier, well, I asked you some questions about your first memory of money, your first memory of making money, how you first spent money, and then answering the question, why is money important to you? If you put that down, don't just like think about that in your head. Like literally write it down. Write down your first memory of money, write down your first dollar that you made, how you made it, write what you spent money on, and then write that right. And then answer this question, why is money important to you? And if you have it written down on like one sheet of paper, it will answer the questions on how to build a budget. Because see the templates like you're talking about, like if you go to a template and you haven't written down all that other stuff, it's just like you're just transferring numbers from like a checking ledger or a checking account bank statement onto another spreadsheet. You're just like moving numbers around. It's like playing dominoes almost. You're just playing game, right? But if you build the vision out, like look at your past, look at what your vision for money is, then the numbers become alive. Do you remember that movie Night at the Museum? Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I love that
Adam
movie. Yeah.
Right. I mean, those are the bank ledger to like a spreadsheet. That's like those wax animals. That's all they are, right? When you put the vision statement behind it that's that Egyptian thing that brought those animals to life. Could you imagine if that movie would have just been Ben Stiller walking around with a bunch of animals doing nothing? How freaking boring would that have been? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, like, the vision is that tool that brought those animals to life. It'll be the tool that brings your money to life. It'll assign purpose, and when you assign purpose with it, all of a sudden, you can go live like that Teddy Roosevelt wax figure and meet Pocahontas or whoever that was, and it's just a lot of fun when you do it that way. Money becomes alive when you know what your history of it with and why it's important to you. And then you can go out and live the one of a kind life as opposed to being just boring in a templated one size fits all world.
And no one needs to do that.
Not at all.
Mike, it's been really great talking to you. How can people find you if they want to work with you, learn more, get your book?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com and type in the one of a kind financial plan. There's so many tools and so many resources in the book. Like, I mean, I tell so many stories. I love telling stories. Tell so many stories in the book. We have a couple more books coming out that you'll see. If you buy this book, you'll be on the list at Amazon. They'll put you on to see future book releases. If you want to connect with me, the easiest way is just to go to my website, MikeMilligan.com. You're going to see on there 3 common themes: educate, coach, and plan. Educate is how, like, I have courses available to teach people about money. The coach is more of like advisors. Like, I train advisors around the world to become more ethical and to build one of a kind into their actual practices. Don't be boring. Don't be those wax figures. Be the ones that come alive. And then finally, on the planning side, like One Oak Financial is there. We have 20 team members that embrace the one-of-a-kind living, and we build one-of-a-kind financial plans for your one-of-a-kind life.
Amazing. Everyone should go and check out your website. Definitely get the book. Thank you ever so much. It's been a real pleasure. I wish you well on your mission. I'm sure you'll be super successful. And I also hope you get home okay as well.
It's going to be great. I'm going to be walking on the beach later today.
Man, I will be in bed by that point. However, I'm excited for you still. Thank you.
Thank you.